Welcome to Module 7, Paternalism and Health Promotion. We begin with a 2015 article from the Journal of the American Medical Association, which evaluated the long-term trends in mortality. Here are the trends of the leading causes of death, identified as heart disease, cancer, stroke, injuries, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and diabetes. This is different from 150 years ago, where the leading causes of death were infectious diseases like cholera, yellow fever, typhus, and others. One of the important differences from a public health perspective is that many of today's deaths are thought to arise from preventable behaviors. Here's a breakdown from the CDC showing the percentages of preventable deaths from the leading causes. Here is the guiding question for this module. What are the ethical conditions by which social agencies and public health practitioners can act in promoting the public's health and in preventing morbidity or mortality? What ethical obligations guide these goals? I want to remind you about ethical principles. Ethical principles are those claims that articulate our obligations, and we use ethical principles as reasons for our ethical conclusions. Here's an example of an ethical argument. Obtaining an informed consent is the right thing to do, because with consent, the research subject's autonomy is respected. The first part of the argument, obtaining an informed consent is the right thing to do, is the conclusion. The reason is the second part. With consent, the research subject's autonomy is respected. Here is an application of the principle of autonomy. Here are the main ethical principles in public health ethics. The definition of public health, we remember, is what we as a society do to collectively assure the conditions in which people can be healthy. But we also saw in an earlier reading this statement. The key element of public health is the role of government, its power and obligation to invoke mandatory or coercive measures to eliminate a threat to the public's health. This module investigates the idea of mandatory and coercive measures with reference to health promotion. We know that destructive personal habits contribute to increased morbidity and mortality, and in fact, from a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, 25% of all deaths can be attributed to preventable causes. How we think about and answer these questions reveal our understanding of appropriate limits. So what are the limits of the state in regulating, restricting, or prohibiting behaviors that lead to premature morbidity or mortality? What are the limits in shaping, molding, or influencing preferences and desires of citizens? And finally, what are the limits in protecting citizens from commercial influences that may encourage behaviors that are antithetical to public health? In the age of behavioral causes of morbidity and mortality, a good deal of prevention is health promotion. The World Health Organization defines health promotion as a process of enabling people to increase control over and to improve their health. It moves beyond a focus on individual behavior towards a wide range of social and environmental interventions. As it focuses on social and environmental interventions, health promotion is tied to policy. In fact, health promotion can be seen as part of the policy development aspect of the essential public health services. To return to our guiding question, how far should public health officials go to minimize physical and mental harm members of a community suffer? What are the responsibilities, especially if they inflict upon themselves and others through risky personal choices? And what are the appropriate limits of the state? We will address two alternatives in health promotion: education and regulation. We will discuss the appropriate ethical limits to be placed on these efforts to achieve public health ends. Former Surgeon General C. Everett Koop famously once said, "Anything that stops smoking is good." Did he really mean anything? Referring back to the story of UMassAmherst from the beginning of the course, we have to ask if there are limits to this anything. Our job in public health ethics is to think about what these limits may be. Educational programs allow individuals to choose healthful alternatives, and some of the methods employed to educate the public about health include the publication of authoritative studies about impediments to health, labeling prepared foods so that consumers are aware of the nutritional content of their purchases, sex and drug education for children at appropriate ages through the school systems, and the use of public service announcements. This preserves the autonomy of citizens so that more healthful choices can be made. The regulation alternative presents public health laws which regulate, restrict, or prohibit behaviors that lead to premature morbidity or mortality. We see age restrictions on alcohol and tobacco products, the criminalization of drunk driving, the regulation of smoking in indoor public and private spaces, the mandatory use of seatbelts and motorcycle helmets, and the war on drugs. Here, the concern is not as much with autonomy, but with beneficence, the idea of doing good for others. We saw earlier how beneficence can slide into paternalism, and we'll keep that in mind as we proceed through the module. Philosopher Robert Goodin explicitly embraces paternalism as a core value of public health. For those who accept strong paternalism, there is no ethical conflict. The public health official knows what is best. Goodin writes, "We don't leave it to the discretion of consumers whether or not to drink grossly polluted water, ingest grossly contaminated food, or inject grossly dangerous drugs. We prohibit such things on grounds of public health." And further, Goodin writes, "To a very large extent, though, the justification of public health measures in general must be baldly paternalistic. Their fundamental point is to promote the well-being of people who might otherwise be inclined cavalierly to court certain sorts of diseases. The ultimate ethical justification for such paternalism, in turn, must be essentially utilitarian, turning on the way that overall social utility is maximized when the utilities of all members of the society are maximized." We have seen the sentiment earlier with the article that discussed the 5 justifying conditions that permit paternalistic interventions in public health. Our job is to ask if it is ever acceptable to override the wishes of individuals for public health goods. Informing, educating, and empowering are ways to respect the individual members of the population. But we have to always ask if we are overstepping some line in promoting health. Providing information is necessary so that people can make informed decisions about their health. But the information should not be deceptive or misleading. Education is another way of preserving autonomy. It's not just about providing information, however, but also about changing behaviors. The goal here is to promote healthy behaviors and to discourage unhealthy ones, but these goals have to respect the individuals if we take a position of respecting autonomy. Here's a controversial public service announcement from Australia. Empowerment is another way of health promotion through autonomy. It requires a distinction between respecting autonomy and creating autonomy. And it comes from a kind of weak paternalistic point of view, where information is necessary to make what public health practitioners believe is the right choice. There's also this element of counter-manipulation, where messages from the social world present ideas antithetical to a person's health. One question for us is, are we justified in using the tactics of advertising, including coercion and manipulation, if it is for public health ends? Information from the Yale Rudd Center for Food Policy shows us that fast food advertising spent $4.5 billion in 2012. Some believe that combating this spread of misinformation may require the use of unethical means. Our reading for this week attempts to find a compromise in the continuum between autonomy and paternalism, and our job is to determine whether these authors are successful. Some of the goals of public health include prolonging life, promoting health, organizing communities, controlling infections, educating individuals, and perfecting the social machinery to ensure health. As an important discipline, public health has unique ways of accomplishing its purposes. Each very specific goal has the good of the population in mind, and is thus an inherently moral enterprise. Its goal is to do good, to take care of the health of the population. But we have to be able to be in a position to determine where the lines are and when they are crossed.